Welcome back to Fast Market on the TD Ameritrade Network. I'm Tom White, joined by my co-host Kevin Hinks. But let's bring in our next guest for our cash tag segment, and that's going to be Landon Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Landon.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, Kevin.
All right, so we're talking Delta Airlines ahead of their earnings. Shares are down about 20% so far this year, but up about 8% so far this month, having a nice day today, along with a lot of the travel-related stocks. And, you know, everybody's talked about demand for the last 6 months for travel. Landon, are you guys still seeing that positive sentiment for people starting to travel? Because I've got intent to travel. I just won't buy a plane ticket right now because the prices are so stinking high. And, you know, there's no capacity out there. They've cut capacity across multiple markets at this point. So it seems like demand is still allowing a lot of these airlines to fill up their planes.
Yeah, I love that intent. You know, we call it purchase intent. And actually had a conversation yesterday with a hedge fund about this, whether or not, you know, someone intends to do something, do they actually do it?
Right.
And our job at LikeFolio is to use the words and keywords and phrases to figure out if they're actually doing something, not whether they want to do it. And you're right, the prices are insane. I mean, domestic air prices are up 47% since January. That is a huge, huge move. I mean, right when we're kind of starting to get back out there and travel more, the prices go through the roof. A lot of it obviously has to do with macro events that they can't control: inflation, staff shortages, and biggest is fuel. So prices are high. So a lot of that intent got soured a little bit. But when you look at, you know, people talking about flying, it's up significantly, especially year over year now versus 2019. That's a little bit different story. But first, let's talk about this chart with Delta's purchase intent. That's the green line. This is people talking about they're taking flights. Not that they want to, but they are taking flights. And you can see we're not quite back to where we were pre-pandemic. We're getting very close, and the stock is nowhere near where it was pre-pandemic. So I believe there's a little bit of a discrepancy here. I mean, this stock was in the high 50s before COVID hit, and it got down as low as, you know, around 25 or so, maybe even a little bit lower, and traded there for a while during the pandemic. And now we're only around like 30, 31. So I think that there's a big discrepancy between how much people are actually flying and what this stock is valued at. I think it is a little bit undervalued at this point, and we're seeing a lot of return to travel, leisure travel being the least at about plus 45% year over year. Work travel, which is most significant for Delta, plus 74% year over year. So we're seeing some strong numbers in people returning to work travel, which is big for Delta. They have a big business segment. And just overall, people booking a flight is up 21% according to our data. That's purchase intent. If you look at TSA numbers, it's plus 15%. So we're pretty close there. Everything is kind of moving back. One thing that we talked about a year ago was people taking more road trips. Obviously, that would be inversely proportional to success for Delta. That's falling off. That's down about 13% year over year. I think that was a bit of a flash in the pan. Now that airlines have opened back up and everything's kind of returning back to normal, we're seeing a lot of that travel get back out there. Road trips, not so much. And Delta is, in my opinion, a little bit undervalued. We'll see how this earnings report comes out tomorrow, though.
Well, Landon, I think there's some people that agree with you based on the stock being up about 7.5% already today. You know, a quarter ago, this stock jumped on a pretty substantial loss in earnings because their CEO, Ed Bastian, gave such a glowing look at the future. And I think, guys, that's the key to second quarter earnings. It is the CEO's ability to give a good look at the future. Ed Bastian has shown that he does that on a quarterly basis. He's pretty positive in his earnings conference call, in his interviews that he does. Landon, all your metrics seem to be turning to the upside for Delta. They've always been, now we've covered them a lot on this show. Correct me if I'm wrong. They've always been one of the more popular airlines that dipped down pretty significantly during COVID. Are they now just recovering and surging towards their old levels of quality? Because it looks like they're pretty positive, and you're right, the stock has been creamed coming in. Their biggest problem might be capacity on filling the demand that they have. What about all their numbers seem to be pointing up? Am I reading that right, Landon?
Everything's looking pretty good for Delta, and when we look at kind of the scatter plot across all of the different major airlines, the big four, you can see that they've kind of returned to where they belong as far as happiness. We had a little blip there where United kind of took over on happiness, but we've always seen Southwest and Delta at the top on happiness. And you can see, this is one of those charts you want to be in the top right. Nobody's really there. Delta's the closest. And so they're close. They're moving in the right direction. They're going up in happiness and to the right on purchase intent. Again, a lot of that has to do with return to work, which is a big one. Leisure came first, and that's why Southwest did so well initially coming out of the pandemic. And it was, obviously businesses are going to be more conservative, a little bit more cautious, and now they're finally starting to travel more, and that's more in Delta's wheelhouse. And so everything that we're seeing is it's coming back. And if you think about it, you don't have to have the same number of travelers to get the same number of revenue if your tickets are up 47%. I mean, that's an incredible number, and people are paying it. Now, of course, costs are much higher. But if you're just looking at revenue, I think it's going to be easy for them to achieve pre-pandemic levels. Now, profit after all those expenses is going to be a little more difficult. But I do think that we're getting back to what could be described as a normal situation, especially with work travel. Again, big for Delta. So I would say we're pretty bullish here long term. Short term, I'd say we're a little bit leaning on the bullish side, but pretty close to neutral on this particular report. But if they give back any of this 7% gain that we're seeing today, I think it could be a good buying opportunity for a longer period of time, because again, this company's been cut in half since pre-pandemic levels on the stock price, and it's not half the company. It's more. It's much better than that. So I think it's a deal right now.
Well, yeah, I was looking at your airline comparison chart here, Landon, on earnings score momentum. You're seeing some positive metrics out of United and Delta going into their earnings. And then, my favorite or least favorite, but who I have all my miles with, American, always seems to be down there at the bottom. But Southwest, who got upgraded today, I was pretty surprised that that one's going down too. Is this more based on the return of work travel at this point?
So this chart, I don't think we've ever used this type of chart with you guys. You're always asking about our earnings score, and this is actually our earnings score plotted over time. It really only matters right before they report, so it's very relevant for Delta right now, and in a couple of weeks it'll be relevant for the rest. But you can see how much these scores can kind of bounce around and move. And what we're showing here is that Delta has been in the negative territory for a long time, but just recently they started to surge upward, and now we've moved from slightly bearish to slightly bullish on Delta. Obviously, United at the very top, they're seeing some other things that are happening with their mentions and purchase intent that were sort of unexpected. They're doing better than expected. And again, this is a measure of how well the company's numbers are likely to be versus what we would gauge estimations would be. So it's a bit of a, there's some deep algorithms that go into this earnings score. And you're right, American and Southwest not doing great right now. If they reported today, we would be bearish on them. We'll see over the next couple of weeks before they report how this score shapes up. But Delta is moving in the right direction. We like to see that, obviously. And we're slightly bullish going into earnings report tomorrow for Delta.
Slightly bullish, and the stock just traded near 28 bucks, 52-week lows. Seeing a nice little bounce here in today's session, up over 8.7% so far in the month of July. Hey, those ticket prices come down. We got crude oil go down 7%. That's probably helping a lot of the airlines get some of those prices down, Landon, and that intent might be turning into purchases for me in the near term. All right. Great stuff as always, Landon. Have a great day.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. That's Landon Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio.